Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Today, in our series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis, we look to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for an understanding of the word grace. We often speak of divine grace or God's grace, but what do we really know about grace? Yet so many have felt or experienced something we would term as a supreme or divine grace. So here are the words of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. We begin with Sri Aurobindo. It's a long passage. We'll take it slowly. These are replies to his disciples in thousands and thousands of letters they sent to him. He begins, I should like to say something about the divine grace. For you seem to think it should be something like a divine reason, acting upon lines not very different from those of human intelligence. But it is not that. Also, it is not a universal divine compassion either, acting impartially on all who approach it, and acceding to all prayers. It does not select the righteous and reject the sinner. The divine grace came to aid the persecutor, Saul of Tarsus. It came to St. Augustine, the profligate, to Jagai and Madhai of infamous fame, to Bill Wamangal, and many others whose conversion might well scandalize the Puritanism of the human moral intelligence. But it can come to the righteous also, curing them of their self-righteousness and leading to a purer consciousness beyond these things. It is a power that is superior to any rule, even to the cosmic law. For all spiritual seers have distinguished between the law and grace. Yet it is not indiscriminate. Only it has a discrimination of its own, which sees things and persons, and the right times and seasons with another vision than that of the mind, or any other normal power. A state of grace is prepared in the individual, often behind thick veils, by means not calculable by the mind. And when the state of grace comes, then the grace itself acts. There are these three powers. One, the cosmic law, or karma. Two, the divine compassion, acting on as many as it can reach through the nets of the law and giving them their chance. Three, the divine grace, which acts more incalculably, but also more irresistibly than the others. The only question is whether there is something behind all the anomalies of life which can respond to the call and open itself with whatever difficulty till it is ready for the illumination of the divine grace And that something must not be a mental and vital movement, but an inner somewhat which can be well seen by the inner eye. If it is there, and when it becomes active in front, then the compassion can act. Though the full action of the grace may still wait, attending the decisive decision or change. For this may be postponed to a future hour, because some portion or element of the being may still come between, something that is not yet ready to receive. In another answer in Letters on Yoga, Sri Aurobindo writes, "It is not indispensable that the grace should work in a way that the human mind can understand. It generally doesn't. It works in its own mysterious way. At first, it usually works behind the veil, preparing things, not manifesting. Afterwards, it may manifest, but the sadhaka does not understand very well what is happening. Finally, when he is capable of it, he both feels and understands, or at least begins to do so. Some feel and understand from the first, or very early, but that is not the ordinary case. Strength has a value for spiritual realization, but to say that it can be done by strength only and by no other means is a violent exaggeration. Grace is not an invention. It is a fact of spiritual experience. Strength, if it is spiritual, is a power for spiritual realization. A greater power is sincerity. The greatest power of all is grace. The divine grace and power can do everything, but with the full assent of the sadhak. To learn to give that full assent is the whole meaning of the sadhana. The grace is equally for all, but each one receives it according to his sincerity. We must learn to rely only on the divine grace and to call for its help in all circumstances. Then it will work out constant miracles. The Mother. The grace and the help are always there for all who aspire for them, and their power is limitless when received with faith and confidence. What you have to do is give yourself up to the grace of the divine. For it is under the form of grace, of love, that it has consented to uplift the universe after the first involution was established. With the divine love is the supreme power of transformation. It has this power because it is for the sake of transformation that it has given itself to the world and manifested everywhere. Not only has it infused itself into man, but also into all the atoms of the most obscure matter, in order to bring the world back to the original truth. It is this descent that is called the supreme sacrifice in the Indian scriptures. Mother continues, the divine grace is always with you, and by your trust, you allow its action to be effective. It is in proportion to our trust in the divine that the divine grace can act for us and help. With trust in the divine's grace, all obstacles can be surmounted. This was written in 1954. When we trust in the divine's grace, we get an unfailing courage, also written in 1954. Have full trust in the divine's grace, and the divine's grace will help you in all ways. Question to the mother. Sweet mother, how can I subdue the children's naughtiness when I tremble before it? How can I call down an atmosphere in which these wrong movements will not occur and no bad talk will come from the children's lips? How can I bring peace and wisdom into this chaotic mob? I am too weak, too shy. How should I act so as to be able to control this movement in them? Mother, in order to bring peace and wisdom, one must be wise and peaceful. You say that you are weak, but nobody is asking you to rely on your own strength. Your strength, your wisdom, and your peace belong to the divine, and you must rely on Him alone. Have an absolute trust in the grace. Set aside your little personality and allow the grace to act. It will make you do what is needed, and everything will be all right. July 1962. Again in 1962, Mother writes, when in your life you meet with a hardship, take it as a grace from the Lord, and indeed it will become so. And in 1963, in any case, and whatever happens, always consider events as a gift from the divine grace, which is leading you by swift paths towards the spiritual goal of your life. The Supreme has sent His grace into the world to save it. Sri Aurobindo. The divine grace is there, ready to act at every moment, but it manifests as one grows out of the law of ignorance into the law of light. And it is meant not as an arbitrary caprice, however miraculous often its intervention, but as a help in that growth and a light that leads and eventually delivers. The divine may lead us often through darkness, because darkness is there in us and around us. But it is to the light He is leading, and not to anything else. From his book, The Mother. To walk through life armored against all fear, peril, and disaster. Only two things are needed. two that always go together. The grace of the Divine Mother, and on your side, an inner state made up of faith, sincerity, and surrender. And lastly, two from Mother. Have faith. There is no disease which cannot be cured by the divine grace. Whenever there is sincerity, you find that the help, the guidance, the grace are always there to give you the answer, and you are not mistaken for long.